Lights and AC are still out for tens of thousands in the Northeast. More than 100,000 customers were still in the dark across the Northeast Tuesday night after severe weather and thunderstorms. In New York City, 418 power outages were still reported by Con Edison as of 9 p.m. In New Jersey, airports in New York and New Jersey are currently experiencing ground stops, while Boston and Philadelphia are experiencing gate. Early Monday morning, 21,500 Con Edison customers had no electricity, the utility company said in a. Of these customers, the electricity went out late Sunday afternoon, just before dark, as a result of high usage in the continuing heat, according to Con Edison. Temperatures soared in southeast Michigan. At least 250,000 customers, including residents in the Detroit metropolitan area, started their day without power, according to a from DTE Energy. By 9:00, a large storm knocked out power lines Sunday and initially left 600,000 customers without access to electricity, DTE said. The weekend's severe thunderstorms have given way to sunshine in lower Michigan, where temperatures are expected to reach a pleasant high of 78 on Monday, according to the Big Apple. In New York City, the power outages affected traffic lights but resulted in no. The mayor thanked the NYPD, New York State Police, which supplied a couple hundred officers to be deployed in the city. First responders, while the total economic impact remains unknown, the harm done to customers, some elderly and vulnerable to the heat, is obvious, said de Blasio. Dr. Peter Shearer, Chief Medical Officer for Mount Sinai Hospital's Brooklyn campus in the Flatlands, told CNN in an email that the hospital had twice. Symptoms were typical for a blackout, mostly respiratory issues, said Shearer, who added that, as of Monday morning, some patients were still hanging around the emergency room waiting to hear whether power had returned to their homes. The American Red Cross opened 2 shelters at the request of New York City Emergency Management, according to Michael de Volbeliers, a spokesman for the Red Cross. Shelter. Constance Floyd, a resident of Canarsie in Brooklyn, had her power go out around 8 p.m. today after 4.5-hour blackout the night before. She said she had Stephen Hilly, a 28-year-old resident of the Flatlands who lost power Sunday evening, described the heat as unbearable. Hilly, who lives alone with Nala, his Boston Terrier who is frightened by the dark, added, De Blasio said he wants to bottom. Southeast Michigan and Motor City. Heather Rivard, a senior vice president at DTE, said that 2 large storm events in a single weekend overwhelmed the utility system. Workers had begun, while outages were initially concentrated on the west side of DTE's southern Michigan service area from Ann Arbor up to Howell. After Saturday, power outages had become quiet. The outages span a service territory of more than 7,000 square miles, according to a from the company. Overall, in southeast Michigan, DTE has already repaired nearly half of the more than 2,000 wires down by the severe weather that whipped through the region over the weekend, and its crews have been working 16-hour shifts around the clock to restore power, according to the company. More. Rivard said communication of the company's restoration plan faltered over the weekend. Yesterday. Other improvements planned include more extensive tree trimming along power lines and investments in the distribution grid itself, including infrastructure, Rivard said. DTE also urged the public to be careful of any downed wires. Pedestrians should search for location/city.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.